What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Steelers Rewind. Post game here at Acrisure Stadium, 9-3 loss. If you thought last week's preseason game was messy and sloppy, this one might have trumped it, at least offensively. I thought the defense had some real positives to it. Let's start there. Let's start there before we get into the muck of the offense. Defense, man, had some really good things. Nick Herbig, 2 sacks. Keanu Benton looked awesome. This was some of the best Larry Ogunjobi tape I think the Steelers have gotten. He's told me at training camp he felt rejuvenated. He felt the best he had in a long time. Today he looked it, so he played really well. I thought Thomas Graham, who stepped in because Beanie Bishop was hurt, played pretty well in his slot snaps. So credit to him. I think Thomas Graham sees the opportunity. I think he's putting together a nice little roster case right now. Cameron Johnston, in terms of punting, was incredible. Had a ton of booming punts, man. If you were on punt coverage, you would better get after that. And I didn't think the punt coverage was very good today. Definitely something to worry about. We talked about the gunners, man. I think that is a significant issue with this team right now. They need to find themselves some quality gunners. The special teams have just been a mess. It was a little better today, but there was another penalty, a block in the back on the Michael P. Ryan. It felt sloppy again. So definitely something that I think you need to focus on. But the defense today overall was pretty good, at least the starting unit was. The second half, I think some of the corners and some of the safeties that probably aren't going to make the team kind of had some bad tackling angles. They really didn't wrap up very well in the second half, but I thought, the guys that are going to be part of your core here this season did a nice job. As for the offense, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about here. How ugly was this offense, man? I think you can point to multiple issues across the whole landscape of this. How much do I care about play calling in the preseason? Not much, but Arthur Smith did call a good game today, but again, it was vanilla. So how much am I going to really panic about that right now? Not a ton. In terms of this quarterback room, I saw some rough things from both these guys. Russell Wilson, I mean, Russell Wilson was a hard eval tonight just because we'll get to the rest of the offense. I thought the rest of the offense was also quite a disaster. But, checking it down, rambling around the pocket a little bit. I thought Fields did that too. It felt like I didn't feel like Russ left. I will say this about Russ. I didn't feel like he left opportunity out on the field because I didn't think there was much for him. And to be quite honest, I still didn't feel there was much for Fields too. I think most of the positivity that Fields created was either with his legs or with some magic. Really, I thought the offense kind of was stagnant overall. I think the offensive line was a big part of that. They didn't run the ball. They didn't get vertical displacement. A really, really bad game for Broderick Jones. I mean, we can officially be concerned right now. We've talked about this on Steelers Breakdown where I am concerned about Broderick Jones. I think they have tinkered too much with his development. I said he was raw coming out. He struggled pad level, hand usage, hand timing, punch timing. He struggled with footwork. It is an issue. And then on top of that, he's wearing this big brace on his right elbow, and he's got a 2-hand punch. He has no strength behind his punches at all. Guys are not stunned one bit. He's going wide on his punch, and he's only 2-hand punching. He's not using independent hands, so he can't control rushers. Because he's playing wide, guys are getting into his chest. He's getting thrown out of the club like Rousseau did on the one long arm. It was tough for Broderick Jones. I think there's a combination of issues going on with him, but I think he needs to be at left tackle permanently. He needs to stick there, but it's going to take time for him to develop that at that point. I just think the Steelers have significant issues with how they've handled that. I don't think either quarterback separated themselves from one another tonight, and it wasn't in a good way where they were going tit for tat, where we talked about, in practice, it was throw for throw, and it was impressive. I don't think we saw anything like that. I thought we saw Fields create a little bit and his legs, and I thought that dimension showed up. It's definitely something Russ does not have. So that's something to note too. But I don't think you feel great about the quarterback situation either way coming out of this. You definitely don't feel good about the offensive line. I think Zach Frazier did play well. But Broderick Jones is a concern, a significant one. on the right side. And then I didn't think the receivers really separated. This is what I mean by, with Fields and Wilson, I just didn't feel like they missed much. Like, I didn't feel like, oh, there was a guy open and they ran into a sack, or there's a guy open and I want him to hit that. There were maybe one or two instances where I saw that for each of those guys, for Fields and Wilson, and I just didn't feel like there was much there. I didn't feel like the guys were separating, were making the key catches. I thought out of the receiver room, I thought Van Jefferson had a good day. I thought he was making tough catches, but I didn't see the receivers separating and giving easy targets. The obvious one I think that Fields would want back is that post route to TJ Luther, and you could say he carried him too far. You could say Luther slowed down. It was probably a little bit of both. Usually that's what happens when something like that is discussed. Usually it's a little bit of both there. Didn't talk to either of them about that play after the game. So I'll go back to the film and watch that and see where that's at. But ugly offensive performance. I thought teams were a little rough too with some penalties and the punt coverage. You still had pre-snap penalties on the offense with a lot of false starts. So a lot to clean up still. Ugly. It's still just the preseason, but definitely things for the Steelers to work on this week, and hopefully they get a more positive performance to carry into the preseason in Detroit next week. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell for more Nick Faribaugh here on Penn Live.